Gamers of Reddit, what was your halted this game is good moment? Arkham Asylum, the hallucination bits with the scarecrow. Storming the beach at Normandy in Medal of Honor, Frontline. 12-year-old me playing God of War, wow, they show boobs, this is the best game ever, but didn't stopping to spank it disrupt the rhythm of gameplay? Red Dead Redemption when you're crossing the river for the first time and that music starts. It happened late at night for me, was not expecting it at all, and I have never had a video game have that kind of impact on me since. I know it sounds stupid, but it was profound. Halo CE 343 Guilty Spark, the part where you are introduced to the Flood and there are all these Covenant running away. I'm down in the lower level, seeing all these dead soldiers, knowing something bad is about to happen but not knowing where it's coming from or what it's going to be. I was mesmerized. That was my first console game and I am glad it was. Still my favorite Halo game. Skyrim back when it first came out. I had made the mistake of thinking I could take on a pair of giants and was fleeing across the Whiterun Plains when I ran into a saber cat. Having had a few too many bad experiences with those duckers, I turned again and hightailed it away from this saber cat and a giant that was still following me when the epic music started up, and just as I was thinking what the duck, my screen shakes and a third king dragon comes out of nowhere. I promptly scream in fear as this was my first dragon encounter in the wild. I realize I'm trapped between all of these guys and I draw my sword. I died almost instantly. I love Skyrim. Oh man. Bioshock's first bathysphere ride with the welcome film does it for me. I am Andrew Ryan, and I am here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his bro? No, says the man in Washington. It belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican. It belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow. It belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture. A city where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small, and with the sweat of your brow, Rapture can become your city, as well. Duckman. I still get chills every time I watch that scene. The shotgun cock punctuating the Doom 2016 opening. Incredible. I love killing demons. Black Flag. I could seriously just sail the seas blowing up British and Spanish ships for hours. So many games come to mind, but the biggest is probably the end of the prologue in The Last of Us. The Psycho Mantis fight in MGS. He moved my controller. I knew what was going on and I knew what was really happening, but it still blew my mind for a brief moment. Stand back. The portal will open in 3, 2, 1. Wait. What the duck? Is that me? It is me. Well, I've seen plenty of teleporters in games, even mirrors, but wow. That's amazing. Haha, I can't go back through it. This is messing with my head so much. When I first played Undertale, I killed Toriel. I knew from the game's reputation that you could have a purely pacifist run. So I reset the game so I could try again to spare her. And I did. Then Chloe called me out for safe scumming. Fantastico. It moment that uses the fourth wall for actual story and drama. The first 5 minutes of Bastion, where you realize that the narrator is following your movements. Stand around doing nothing? The narrator for the game will comment about it. Swing your weapon randomly at nothing? The narrator will comment about it. Get back to actually doing something meaningful? You guessed it. The narrator will comment about it. Such an amazing voice accent too. Bioshock. Blasting Cohen splicers away with 0-0 buckshot to Tchaikovsky's Waltz of the Flowers. Dark Souls. When I beat my first boss, the amount of adrenaline you get in a boss fight, and the feeling of accomplishment when you win, is almost like a drug. When I first got to Novigrad in Witcher 3, it just feels like a real city, in like games like Skyrim, where they are all tiny. I also had one with the Blood and Wine expansion. Walking around Chusan is just magical. I went into FEAR thinking it was just a generic FPS with graphics that did hold up. But the moment I realized the game is pretty damn good was after I noticed that the AI try to flank you and other tactics that I haven't seen AI use even on current gen games. Shadow of the Colossus. Okay, I have a sword. Use the light to find where to go. Holy it, this is gorgeous. The music. This place is huge. Oh. Time to climb. Not too hard. Oh, the ground's sure what the duck. I have to take that down. This is the first enemy. And then it kept getting better. The moment in Fallout New Vegas when you have a discussion with Caesar about Hegelian dialectics. The fact that the game put so much effort into the thought process of the different factions and then showed the upsides and the downsides through gameplay and through world building was great in FNV. The Witcher 3. As soon as I finished the Bloody Baron questline, I was just blown away by the level of writing. There were so many different endings. So many paths to get to the end. And the characters themselves were all very believable. Not to mention, the combat in that game is amazing once you get past the learning curve. Effects and cause mission in Titanfall 2. God dang. Fallout 3. When you first step out of the vault, I don't know why, but I get goosebumps every time. Say apple. Okay. Press X to say apple. Okay. What you're doing there is jumping. You know what? Close enough. Let's go. Mass Effect. All of them. Oh sir. When I started having dreams about it. Every single game. Vividly remembering conversations in game. Not sleeping a wink. About 3-4 a night. Crying at every emotional part and sometimes non-emotional times. 1, 2, and 3. Can't wait for Andromeda. Dragon Age Origins. While making your way through the deep roads, you hear this creepy as hell voice reading off a poem about how her party was murdered and or turned into horrible abominations. The environment was claustrophobic and the voice actress just nailed those lines. I was freaking out a little. Edit. Wow. Gold. Thank you. Kind stranger. The Stanley Parable. Getting to the 2 doors and choosing the door on the right just blew my mind. It really felt like the narrator was right there with you, responding with sarcasm and wit, and the confusion ending especially blew my mind even more with the level of complexity it took to get there. My only gripe is that there wasn't enough endings. The first scene in Kingdom Hearts when all the Disney villains are sitting around sniping at each other and discussing their master plan. I would only later realize that Disney has done this stuff before, with House of Villains and such, also in 2002. But at the time it was like whoa, they put Jafar and Ursula in the same room. This it is off the chain. I like crossover stuff. Factorio. When I dreamt of Belt the night after. Final Fantasy VII leaving Midgar for the first time. The opening moments of Dead Space 2. No punches were pulled. Morrowind. I grabbed the ring from the barrel, headed through the office, and stepped out into a small village situated along the coast. I looked around and started on an adventure. Alien. Isolation. When I hid in a locker for half hour smoking cigarettes waiting for the alien to either lose interest or find me and rip my face off. Only to realize the noise I was hiding from was one of them damn 1970s computers making a racket. 10/10 would get scared of a desktop again. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Progressing through that game, it only gets better and better. Then you get to the torture scene where Vol'jin beats Snake to a pulp and then Eva and Ocelot get into the confrontation in which Snake's eye ends up getting shot. You then play the rest of the game with one eye when you go into first person mode. I found myself replaying that game a lot. I've got too many to list, but the latest one is Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. I've played about 20 hours in it so far. Mostly pottering and I've started to notice things. I watched a dog chase its own tail. I watched a horse reach forward with its upper lip. I watched a massive turnip broccoli hybrid take my seed and shake its maracas to make me more accommodating to implements. Chloe, look out. What the duck? Bang. Metal Gear Solid 4, crawling through oven hallway, epic. Planet Size 2, when I looked up, saw like 30 galaxies dropping troops on our base. Ducking awesome. When I started playing my first game in the Civilization franchise, Civ III at 5 PM, and the next time I looked at a clock it was 5 AM. Completing the Vault of Glass in Destiny is one of my favorite experiences in gaming. Destiny gets a lot of flack, but it delivers some pretty stellar experiences, especially in raiding. When Ori and the Blind Forest became the first video game to ever make me cry, and it happened within 5 minutes of playing. After that scene, I was so sad I stopped playing, but it was done so incredibly, and the way the game has been designed is just amazing. The first time I ever split my Marines in Terran vs Zerg, so the splash damage from his bannerlings only killed about 20% of my army rather than all of it. That was the moment I understood why StarCraft was the RTS. 2000 games later, and I'm still finding mechanical depth I didn't know about. It's a masterpiece of multiplayer. The beginning of Half-Life. Antichamber. When I finally got what the green gun is capable of doing, when I understood the red gun. The Kimmery fight in FFX. I think it was the Besaid Island scenery, but I just remember thinking it looked so amazing. When I first got my 360 and got Gears of War, sawing someone in half with a chainsaw for the first time was extremely satisfying and was truly my first next-gen moment. When I first walked through the doors and saw the city of Columbia in BioShock Infinite, pretty sure I just wandered around the city for 30 minutes in awe of how insanely gorgeous and highly detailed the whole thing was. I love the Fallout series, so I will have to say in Fallout 4 when the Brotherhood of Steel makes their debut, and the Pride One flies overhead. People of the Commonwealth, do not interfere. Our intentions are peaceful. We are the Brotherhood of Steel. And the music. OMG. So epic. The beginning of Metal Gear Rising. Fighting the first soldiers is a lot of fun and gets you used to the controls. But the first boss fight against a Ray was mind-blowing to me. Ninja running to stop bullets. Being able to parry nearly anything, including a massive mech's foot. Cutting off limbs to progress the fight. And an amazing soundtrack that syncs up with the end of the fight. Rules of Nature. I originally wanted to hate Rising, since I wanted a slower paced Metal Gear again, but that intro fight blew my expectations out of the water. It's probably my favorite entry to the series now. Fallout 3. First successful VATS on a super mutant. Darkest Dungeon. With the narrator music kicking in during a big fight boss battle, it gets you going. In Silent Hill. The first time the game switches to that dark dimension, or whatever the duck that creepifying it was, my mind exploded, and so did my butthole. Uncharted 3's scene with the cargo plane flying over the desert was a pretty amazing moment for me. Such a cool set piece taken straight out of a great action movie. Oldie, but Descent. Free Space. The opening cinematic gripped me, but seeing the alien ships and their insane power level filled you with a sense of desperation a lot of games never could. Crusader Kings II. I started with the Vikings and Incest DLC. I've spent almost 4 years since then murdering my brothers, seducing my sisters and horses, and castrating my political rivals. The first time I played Stardew Valley, when I looked at the clock and realized I just played 5 straight hours. And enjoyed about every minute of it. The rest of the time, well, dying in the cave sucks. Demon Souls. When combat actual felt like combat. I hit an enemy, he staggers. I tire. He hits me back, I stagger too. Like, wow, this is actual combat. For me it's between the Battle of the Citadel in Mass Effect 1, would you kindly, in BioShock, and pretty much the whole Bloody Baron quest in Witcher 3. Battlefield 1, bullets flying everywhere, dead bodies and people dying, blood everywhere, really feels like you're in the war. Oh, and the graphics are insane. When I started getting better at CS:GO, the first time I hit my 1000 hours benchmark and noticed I wasn't getting bored of the game, that is the moment I knew CS:GO was the it. Descent. One of the first games that gave you 360 degrees of motion. Before, games like Doom just let you go forward and backwards for the most part without even jumping. In Descent you could go in any direction and it was awesome. I knew I was going to play Saints Row III when I watched my partner do the second mission, a mid-air gunfight after falling out of a plane. I knew SR3 was going to be one of my favorite games ever when I jumped from a helicopter and Power by Kanye West started playing. Even before I got to the most memorable parts of the game, like the faraway sequence, I immediately knew that Red Dead Redemption was going to be an amazing experience when I went to that cliff near McFarlane's ranch. If you played the game, you know the one I mean, the one between the ranch and Armadillo, where you meet the strange man and gaze at the desert, an entire freaking desert for me and my trusty steed to explore. And that was only the beginning of this Wild West. That was when I knew I was gonna be here for a long time, just exploring, having fun, appreciating the scenery and the incredible story. Surprised no one's commented burning marijuana farm in Far Cry 3. Rust, feeling the adrenaline when someone's outside your base with full Kevlar and axe. Dragon's Dogma, after finishing the prologue and leaving town when you encounter your first Cyclops. Edit, corrected ogre to Cyclops. Freelancer, space simulator where you can do pretty much anything and had good modding support. Feel like being a pirate and steal some high commodity cargo? Go ahead. Wanna save the day and blow up pirates? Yes, you can and can get bounty money. So many hours on that game and wish they came out with a remaster. I still distinctly remember a moment from my first Fallout 4 playthrough. When you emerge from Vault 111, you are greeted with the sight of the town where you used to live in ruin. It's made even worse by the fact that you saw what it all looked like pre-war. Combined with the dead look of the surrounding forest, it gives off a feeling I can only describe as everything's gone. Max Payne, the first one, the atmosphere, comics instead of cutscenes, and, of course, bullet time. But the nightmares are what makes this game really stand out for me. The environments distorted just enough to make them creepy without feeling over the top. Distant screams and whispers. It's a bummer there were no such scenes in later Max Payne games. I still replay the original one to relive Max's nightmares. The flesh of fallen angels. I think I died. I think I'm dead. I don't know.